Hi, this is Mitch King with the Monday, November 10th Daily Stock Picks newsletter. What I'd like to do is review the intraday trade charts that we saw today as well as on Friday. Now, right now the market's still open. I just want to give you a little tutorial about how I approach today. This is Amazon.com on a 3-minute one-day chart. And with E-Trade, when you have this one day, they're really, it's kind of funny because they really mean 2 days. But I wanted to show you Fridays as well as today. What I talked about on last night's report was the same idea for intraday trade on a drop and pop pattern. I tried to tell you that it was not going to be quite as effective, and it was definitely harder to do today than it was Friday. This is Friday, November 7th. It dropped, let's say, from a high of 48.70 down to 47, and then it bounced really nicely up to 49.5, and all these stocks did that Friday. Well, today was decisively more negative, and the market really didn't have a lot of reason to do anything today. There was no good news, there was no real bad news. So since we've had a little bit of a run-up here in the last couple weeks, the most obvious direction when there's still some nervousness left in the market is a downward motion. And this is the kind of stuff that I'd like to try to teach you through time when you read the newsletter. We err on the side, the bias is negative, and the bias is B-I-A-S, which is the tendency for the market to be a little negative. So when I use the word bias of negative or positive, that's kind of a short term of what I'm looking for in the future. So getting back to this technique today, here's the 3-minute chart. We're trying to let this drop. And then I also switched to a 1-minute chart, which I'll show you right now. Let me finish this out. So a 3-minute chart, we're letting this drop here. Normally that happens in the first hour and a half to 2 hours of the market. Let's take a look at the timeline on this. This didn't bottom right down here till about 12:45 Eastern, which is 9:54 Pacific time, which is about 10 o'clock in Portland. Now I tried right there. You see this time when I click my left mouse on Power E-Trade Pro, and this is the same thing with Schwab and Fidelity and Ameritrade, you click your left part of your mouse and you'll get this crosshair if you turn it on. So you'll see the prices on the right, and you'll see the time on the bottom right down here. There, see the bottom of MACD there? And you'll see that turn up there, and you'll see the price try to bounce there from a low of 47.86. Came up about $1, which is not very much, and it turned right around. So I made a little bit of money on that, and that's a tough one. I mean, you know, it's tougher compared to Friday and Thursday. You guys are used to some big moves last week, even back Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It went negative. I got this right in here. Let's switch to a few other stocks, but you can see that MACD right there, and if we open up the stochastics, they're really not helpful on this 2-day thing. Let me switch to a 1-day. Okay, so there's the first move right over here, about 10 o'clock Eastern time, which is 7 o'clock our time. We got a bottom, both the moving average and the MACD and the stochastics, and you guys can add the OBV and the Williams %R. With this particular system, I don't like to take up so much space away from my price chart up here, so I only use 2. And I'm choosing the stochastics and the MACD. So you can see we tried there and made a little bit of money, and I really didn't see anything until later on. Let's move on to the other stocks, CNX. Let's take a look at CNX. I want to go back to showing Thursday and Friday. Let me close this down a little more so we can get some price room in here. This was a tough one to get today, right here. We saw the same thing in MACD. Actually, I ended up making it later in the day right in here. And the last hour and a half, 2 hours, I have not been trading this market. It's tough to read. And once I make some money, I try to hang on to it without giving it back toward the end of the day. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that before. Bank of America was really not a good trade today. I made a little bit of money on it. It just was very negative. Let's take a look at Wells Fargo. Was a lot easier to handle, and here we go again at that time in that first hour and a half is typical. Apple was very negative all day. I did do well right here. It went from 98 to about 100. Probably didn't even get half of that, $2. Let's take a look at RIM. You can see the same pattern, really a small bounce, big drop, and lower lows throughout the day. There's Foundation Coal. There was a move. I finally got Foundation Coal on this move here. Let me keep going with the stocks. Arch Coal that I had listed here, same thing. Now Arch Coal and Foundation Coal, PCX, which is Patriot Coal, you'll see them all follow each other because they're all joined at the hip on these computer program trading. Google was not something I traded at all. Here's First Solar. Now First Solar has a lot of negativity today because that whole group has been downgraded by a brokerage firm. Can't remember which one. As soon as they get a downgrade, I start looking for any little pop-up to short into. I hardly traded First Solar today. Here's MT, which was the steel stock. I did go long the steels here, and I shorted it earlier in the day. I wasn't near as active. I didn't like the market as much as I did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I mentioned to you on the report that we were in a no man's land as far as what the market will do. And I think we're going to be in that for another day or two. And we'll see what kind of news develops and what the market wants to be looking toward to give it direction. And what I mean by that is it could be economic news events. It could be this new loan of $150 billion AIG got. It could, see the market was up a couple hundred points this morning pre-market because the China came up with their stimulus package of about $652 billion. All the Chinese stocks were doing well. S&P, let's see where S&P was. See, this is Chinese oil right here. So this stock was opening up at 66 something, dropped all the way down to $59. So in fact, let's take a look at FXI. That's the Xinhua 25. Let's see that price range, 28 to 25.50. That's a 10% swing on that stock. I didn't trade this one at all today. So now I think the market's going to be wanting to wait for a couple days and try to look for different news events, what it's looking for. My hunch is that we'll probably just flounder around, not really extreme lows or extreme highs, but again, trade what you see, not what you expect. But I'm looking for a trading range to stay in here, and that will just pick off these intraday trades until it's really obvious to plant yourself in those intermediate swings like we did a week or two ago. This is the intraday chart for Goldman Sachs. Let me back up here and show you the daily chart on Warden Brothers on Goldman Sachs. Let's take a look at that first. Now what I like is I like this increasing volume and faster drop on the stock. I have not studied the news on it, why it's dropping. We know that it was an investment bank. They rechartered themselves as a money center bank and are kind of recreating themselves the same way that Morgan Stanley did. So here is an opportunity that I think is coming up pretty quick. It's probably tomorrow there's going to be a really nice tradable bounce, and it may lead into an intermediate trade or a swing trade for at least several days, possibly an intermediate trade. But let's take a look at this. What I like to do is I like to wait for these setups to occur where opportunities to buy it. And I said to myself, well, look, the odds are going to be on the long side, not on the short side, but we got to wait until we get a good entry point. Now this is a 1 minute 2-day chart. It shows this morning opening at around $80, gapped up there. You see there was the close of this line here at 77.42, gapped up about almost $3 on this Chinese news, and then went straight down throughout the day. I traded this once somewhere in here, thought I'd wait a little longer, thought the market was pretty negative, but something is driving Goldman Sachs down. Now I'll read a little bit more later today, and I'll put in the text report. I'll tell you to start reading a little bit of this news of some of these companies, especially this one right now. This is the one I'm interested in, trying to find a place to buy it long. I don't know if it was here at the bottom there. Let's see the price there at $68.50. I know that it went up $4. I kind of quit trading, so I didn't get that. But let's take a look at it. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to switch to these 3-minute charts. and take a look at different views. Here's a 3-minute chart, 1 day only of Goldman Sachs. Now let's take a look at a 2-day, and I just want you to look and get in the habit of looking at different viewpoints of the same stock. Let's switch to a 15-minute chart, 5-day period, 5 or 6 days. Looks like we might be getting a buy signal there where it's flattening out. Let's take a look at those indicators a little closer. Okay, I like what I'm seeing here. Now here's what I'm seeing, and I have limitations by my screen size how much I can put on this video, but